He spent years protecting his heart from breaking again, until the moment she leaned closer and made it forget how to beat. David never believed in love at first sight. After working 3 years as a cardiac nurse, he'd seen enough hearts on monitors to know that what people called butterflies was just irregular heartbeats. Nothing magical about it, just science. That Tuesday morning started like any other. His alarm went off at 5:30, and he dragged himself out of bed, made his usual black coffee, and drove through the quiet city streets to the hospital. The sun was just starting to peek over the buildings, painting everything in that soft orange glow that made even a concrete jungle look almost beautiful. He parked in his usual spot, third floor of the garage, walked through the familiar corridors, and swiped his badge at the cardiac ward entrance. The smell of disinfectant and that weird hospital coffee hit him like it did every morning. Some people hated that smell, but David found it oddly comforting. This place had become more home to him than his actual apartment. "Morning, David," Jenny, the head nurse, called out from the station. She was already halfway through her own coffee, looking tired but cheerful as always. "Morning," he replied, grabbing his clipboard and scanning the patient list for the day. Same routine, different day. That's how he liked it. Predictable. Safe. No surprises. His breakup 2 years ago had taught him that surprises were overrated. When your girlfriend leaves you for your best friend, you learn to appreciate boring. You learn to keep your head down, do your work, and not let anyone get too close. It was easier that way. "Hey, David?" Jenny called again. "We've got a physical therapy consult for Mr. Patterson in room 304. New therapist started last week. Can you assist?" He nodded without looking up. "Sure, what time?" "She'll be here in about 20 minutes. David made his rounds first, checking on his regular patients. Mr. Patterson was recovering well from his bypass surgery, chatting with his wife about their grandchildren. Mrs. Kim was stable, complaining about the hospital food like she did every morning, and old Mr. Lee was asleep, his heart monitor beeping in that steady rhythm that told David everything was okay. He was updating charts at the nurse's station when he heard unfamiliar footsteps behind him. Not the usual shuffle of patients or the quick clicks of nurses' shoes, but something different, lighter, almost musical in their rhythm. "Hi, I'm looking for David Chen. I'm here for the physical therapy consult." He turned around, and for a second he forgot what he was going to say. Standing there was a woman about his age, maybe a bit younger, with warm brown eyes and a smile that seemed to light up the entire hallway. She wore the standard hospital scrubs, had her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and carried a tablet under her arm. Nothing special about the appearance, really, but something about her presence filled the space around her. "That's me," he managed to say, his voice coming out a bit rougher than usual. "Great. I'm Maya Patel, the new physical therapist. Jenny told me you'd help me with Mr. Patterson's assessment." She extended her hand, and when David shook it, her grip was firm and confident. "Yeah, room 304. This way." As they walked down the corridor, Maya kept up a steady stream of conversation. "I just transferred here last week from the downtown branch. This hospital is so much bigger. I got lost 3 times yesterday trying to find the cafeteria. Ended up in the radiology department somehow. They were very confused why a physical therapist was wandering around their x-ray machines." David found himself almost smiling. Almost. "The cafeteria is on the 2nd floor, east wing." "See? Already helpful." She laughed, and it was a genuine sound, not forced or fake. "How long have you been working here?" 3 years in cardiac. 5 total. You must really know your stuff then." "That's perfect, because I always like to understand the full picture with heart patients. The cardiovascular system affects everything we do in PT." They reached room 304, and David pushed open the door. Mr. Patterson looked up from his lunch tray, his wife sitting beside him. "Good afternoon." "Mr. Patterson?" Maya said warmly, immediately moving to his bedside. "I'm Maya, your physical therapist. How are you feeling today?" "Tired," the old man admitted. "But better than yesterday." "That's exactly what we want to hear. Progress, even small progress, is still progress." David watched as Maya examined the patient, asking questions, explaining everything she was doing in simple terms that Mr. Patterson could understand. She was thorough but gentle, professional but warm. Most impressive was how she made the elderly man laugh twice during what was usually a pretty uncomfortable assessment. "David," she called, gesturing him over. "Can you show me his latest cardiac readings? I want to make sure I'm not pushing him too hard with the exercises I'm planning." He moved closer, pulling up the monitor data on the nearby screen. Maya leaned in to see better, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something light and fresh like citrus or mint. "See here." He pointed at the screen, very aware of how close she was standing. His heart rate spikes when he does too much, but he's been stable for the last 48 hours. Maya leaned even closer, studying the numbers intently. "So if I keep his exercises low impact and watch for any signs of strain, we should be okay to start with basic mobility work?" "Yeah, that should be fine. Just watch his breathing. If it gets labored, stop immediately." She turned her head to respond, and suddenly her face was inches from his. Their eyes met, and David felt something weird happen in his chest. A flutter, a skip, something that definitely shouldn't happen to a perfectly healthy 28-year-old man. "Got it," Maya said softly, still looking at him. "Safety first." Time seemed to stretch out for a moment, and David couldn't remember what they were talking about. All he could focus on was the gold flecks in her brown eyes, and the way her smile reached all the way to those eyes, making them crinkle at the corners. Then Mr. Patterson coughed, breaking the spell. "Sorry," the old man said. "Don't mind me, carry on." Maya stepped back, her cheeks slightly flushed, and David busied himself with adjusting the monitor that didn't need adjusting. The rest of the consultation went smoothly. Maya was clearly good at her job, and David found himself impressed by how she balanced being friendly with being professional. She took detailed notes, asked smart questions, and genuinely seemed to care about Mr. Patterson's recovery. "Thank you so much for your help," she said as they left the room. "That was really useful. I'm sure I'll need to bug you again about other patients." "It's fine," David said, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Part of the job. Well, still, it's nice to work with someone who clearly knows what they're doing." She smiled at him again, that same warm smile that made something in his chest do that weird flutter thing. "I'll see you around?" "Yeah, around." He watched her walk away down the corridor, that same musical rhythm to her steps, before he caught himself staring and turned back to his work. The rest of his shift felt strange. He kept finding his mind wandering back to that moment at the monitor, the way time had seemed to slow down, the feeling in his chest that he couldn't quite explain. It was annoying. He had work to do, patients to check on, charts to complete. He didn't have time for distractions, but at lunch, sitting alone in the break room like he always did, he caught himself wondering if Maya had found the cafeteria okay. By the time his shift ended at 7, David had convinced himself that whatever he'd felt was nothing, just surprise at meeting someone new. That was all. His heart was fine, perfectly normal, just doing its job, pumping blood like it always did. As he drove home through the evening traffic, his phone buzzed with a message from Jenny. "New PT is great. And I saw how you looked at her." "Just saying." David groaned and tossed his phone onto the passenger seat. He didn't look at anyone any particular way. He was just being professional, helpful. That was it. But that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't stop thinking about warm brown eyes and the feeling that, just for a moment, his heart had forgotten how to beat. The next morning, David took a different route to the hospital. Not because he was avoiding anyone. Just felt like a change. That's what he told himself anyway. It didn't matter. Maya found him anyway. "David." Perfect timing. She appeared beside him in the hallway like she'd materialized out of thin air. "I have a question about Mrs. Kim's case. Jenny said you're her primary nurse?" "Yeah, what's up?" "Can we grab coffee?" "I know it's early, but I've been here since 6 and I desperately need caffeine." David checked his watch. He had 20 minutes before his official shift started. Sure. The hospital cafeteria was already buzzing with activity. Doctors grabbing quick breakfast between surgeries, nurses changing shifts, visitors looking confused and tired. David and Maya found a small table near the window away from the crowd. "So," Maya said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup, "Mrs. Kim, she's got a pacemaker, right? What's her tolerance level for physical activity?" David pulled out his phone, scrolling through his notes. "She's been cleared for moderate exercise. Walking is good, light stretching, nothing too strenuous." "That's what I thought, but I wanted to confirm." Maya took a sip of her coffee and made a face. "This is terrible. Why is hospital coffee always so bad? It's a universal law, like how hospital food is always mysteriously gray no matter what it's supposed to be." She laughed, that genuine sound that he'd noticed yesterday. "At least we're prepared for the worst, right? Builds character. They talked about Mrs. Kim's treatment plan, then somehow the conversation shifted. Maya asked about how he got into nursing, and David found himself telling her about his grandmother, who'd had heart problems when he was a teenager. How watching the nurses care for her had inspired him to do the same. "That's really beautiful," Maya said, and she meant it. He could tell by the way she looked at him, no pity, just understanding. "My grandfather had a stroke when I was in college. That's actually why I got into physical therapy. I watched him work so hard to walk again, to regain his independence. His therapist was incredible, so patient and encouraging. I wanted to be that person for someone else. That's a good reason. Better than just wanting a stable job, right?" She smiled, but there was something sad behind it. "What do you mean?" Maya hesitated, stirring her coffee even though she'd already stirred it 3 times. "My family wanted me to be a doctor. Traditional family, traditional expectations. When I chose physical therapy instead, they were disappointed. They came around eventually, but it took a while." David understood family pressure. His mom still asked when he was going to find a nice girl and settle down. Like his job and his life weren't enough on their own. "At least you stuck with what you wanted." "Yeah." She looked up at him. "What about you? Family supportive?" "Mostly. My mom worries I work too much. My sister thinks I need to get out more." "The usual. Do you?" "Do I what?" "Work too much?" David shrugged. "I like my job." "That's not an answer." Maya grinned. "But I'll let it slide. For now." That became their routine over the next 3 weeks. Coffee in the morning when their schedules aligned. Quick conversations in hallways between patients. Occasional lunches in the cafeteria when they both happened to be free at the same time. David told himself it was just friendly. Professional colleagues getting to know each other. Nothing more, but his coworkers noticed. "You're smiling," Jenny pointed out one afternoon. "No, I'm not." "You literally just smiled at your clipboard." "I did not." Jenny raised an eyebrow. "It's okay to like someone, you know. You're allowed to be happy." "I'm fine. You're stubborn is what you are." But she left it alone, which David appreciated. The truth was, he did look forward to seeing Maya. She made the long shifts feel shorter. She made him laugh, which he hadn't done much of in the past 2 years. And when she talked about her patients, her eyes lit up with genuine care and passion that reminded him why he'd chosen this job in the first place. One evening, 3 weeks after they'd met, David was doing his final rounds when he noticed Maya's bag still in the physical therapy office. It was almost 8 o'clock. Most of the day staff had left hours ago. He found her in the gym working with elderly Mr. Rodriguez, who was supposed to have been discharged that afternoon but had asked for one more session. "Come on. Mr. Rodriguez, you've got this," Maya encouraged as the old man slowly lifted his arm, wincing with effort. "Remember small movements. We're not trying to win any weightlifting competitions here." "When I was young," Mr. Rodriguez said through gritted teeth, "I could lift a car. And when I was young, I could eat 5 cookies without feeling sick." "Times change." Maya supported his arm gently. "There you go, perfect, that's enough for today." As Mr. Rodriguez rested, Maya noticed David standing in the doorway. "Hey, what are you still doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing." Mr. Rodriguez wanted one more session before going home. Didn't want to leave things undone. She helped the old man up. "Let's get you back to your room and then you're free to escape this place tomorrow morning." David waited while Maya finished up, helping her return the equipment to its proper places. "You didn't have to stay," she said, but she sounded grateful. "Neither did you." "Touché." They walked out together through the quiet hospital corridors. The night shift had taken over, and the whole place had that calm, slightly eerie feeling it got after visiting hours ended. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said as they reached the parking garage. "Sure. Why do you always eat lunch alone?" David stopped walking. "What?" "I've noticed. You always take your break by yourself, usually in that little break room on the 3rd floor, not the cafeteria where everyone else goes." He shrugged, suddenly defensive. "I like the quiet. Or you're avoiding people. I'm not." He stopped, realizing she might be right. "Maybe I just prefer my own company." "That's fair." Maya leaned against her car, keys in hand but not moving to leave. "I was just curious. You seem like you're holding something heavy, you know? Like you're carrying weight that you don't have to carry alone." David felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd kept carefully locked away. "My ex cheated on me. With my best friend. 2 years ago. The words came out flat, emotionless, but Maya's expression softened with understanding, not pity. That's awful. I'm sorry, it's fine. I'm over it, are you? He met her eyes, and for some reason he couldn't lie to her. I don't know. Maybe not completely. It made me careful about trusting people. Maya nodded slowly. I get that. I was engaged once. Family-approved match, everything planned, perfect on paper. Except I didn't love him. Not really. I called it off 3 months before the wedding. That must have been hard. Hardest thing I've ever done. My family was furious. The gossip was unbearable. But staying would have been worse. For both of us. She looked up at the concrete ceiling of the parking garage. Now my family thinks I'm too picky. That I let a good thing go. Maybe they're right. They're not. She looked at him, surprised. How do you know? Because settling for good on paper isn't good enough. You did the brave thing. Maya smiled, but her eyes were wet. Thanks. I needed to hear that. They stood there in the parking garage, 2 people carrying their own wounds, and David realized something. He wasn't alone in being careful. Maya was protecting herself too, hiding her own fears behind that warm smile and easy conversation. Hey, he said impulsively. Next time you want company for lunch, the 3rd-floor break room has 2 chairs. Her smile grew. Yeah? I might take you up on that. Okay. Okay. They said goodnight, and David drove home feeling lighter than he had in months. Maybe Jenny was right. Maybe it was okay to let someone in just a little bit. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from an unknown number. This is Maya. Jenny gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to say thanks for tonight. For listening. It meant a lot. David saved her number and replied, anytime. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, tomorrow. Same place, same terrible coffee? He found himself smiling at his phone. Yeah, same terrible coffee. The next 2 weeks felt different. Brighter somehow. David actually looked forward to going to work, which was saying something for someone who already liked his job. Maya started joining him for lunch in the 3rd-floor break room. They'd talk about their patients, their families, random things like their favorite movies or the weirdest medical cases they'd seen. She told him about growing up in a strict household where every decision was scrutinized. He told her about his grandmother's terrible cooking that everyone pretended to love. It was easy, comfortable, safe. Until it wasn't. Thursday afternoon, David was helping Mr. Martinez sit up in bed. The elderly man had been recovering well from his heart surgery, gaining strength every day, making jokes with the nurses and FaceTiming his great-grandchildren. He was supposed to be discharged on Saturday. My wife is making tamales for when I get home, Mr. Martinez said, his weathered face breaking into a grin. She makes the best tamales in the whole city, maybe the whole country. I believe it, David said, adjusting the pillows. You rest now, okay? Big day coming up. Thank you, David, for everything. You've been good to this old man. Just doing my job. No. Mr. Martinez caught his hand. You do more than your job. You care, that's different. That's special. David felt a lump in his throat. You're going to make me emotional, Mr. Martinez. Good. Men should feel things. That's what makes us human. David was at the nurse's station updating charts when the alarm went off. Room 310, Mr. Martinez. His blood went cold, he ran. His training kicked in automatically, years of experience taking over. Jenny was already there, starting compressions. The monitor showed ventricular fibrillation. Bad. Really bad. Get the crash cart. David barked at another nurse. Page cardiology now. He took over compressions from Jenny, counting in his head, keeping the rhythm steady. Come on, come on, come on, the defibrillator charged. Clear. Mr. Martinez's body jerked. The monitor stayed flat, again, charging, clear. Nothing, time blurred. More doctors arrived. They tried everything. Every protocol, every procedure, every trick they knew. David's arms burned from the compressions, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. This was Mr. Martinez, the man who told terrible jokes and showed everyone pictures of his great-grandchildren and was supposed to go home on Saturday to eat tamales. David. Dr. Patel's hand on his shoulder. David, that's enough. No, he's gone. The words hit like a physical blow. David stopped, stumbling back, staring at the flat line on the monitor. The room was suddenly too quiet. No more alarms. No more beeping. Just silence. Time of death, 1447. David walked out. He didn't remember leaving the room, didn't remember walking down the hallway, didn't remember anything until he found himself in the staff meditation room, a tiny space with dim lights and comfortable chairs that nobody ever used. He sat down and put his head in his hands. He'd lost patients before. It happened in cardiac care. Not everyone made it. No matter how hard you tried, no matter how much you cared, that was the brutal reality of the job. But it never got easier. What had he missed? Had there been signs? Should he have checked on Mr. Martinez more frequently? Had he been too confident about the recovery? The door opened quietly. David didn't look up. Jenny told me. Maya. Of course it was Maya. I'm fine, he said, his voice rough. No, you're not. She sat down beside him, not touching, just present. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was just there. Mr. Martinez, David finally said. He was doing so well. He was supposed to go home. His wife was making tamales. I know. I should have. His voice cracked. I should have seen something. Done something. You did everything right, David. It wasn't enough. It never feels like enough. Maya's voice was soft. During my first year as a therapist, I had a patient. Young guy, motorcycle accident. We'd been working together for months. He was getting stronger, starting to walk again. He was so determined, so full of hope. She paused, swallowing hard. One day he pushed too hard in a session. I didn't stop him fast enough. He fell, hit his head. Died 3 days later from the brain bleed. David looked at her, seeing the pain in her eyes. It wasn't your fault, Maya continued. Just like this isn't your fault. Sometimes we do everything right and people still die. That's not fair, it's not okay, but it's the truth. And carrying that guilt won't bring them back. It won't honor them. Then what does? We keep caring. We keep showing up. We remember why we do this job even when it breaks our hearts. She finally reached over, taking his hand. We can't save everyone, David, but we honor them by continuing to care for the ones we can save. Something inside him broke. He'd been holding it together for so long, keeping everything controlled and contained, but Maya's words and her hand in his made it all come crashing down. He cried. Quietly, his shoulders shaking, tears he'd been holding back for not just today but for years. For Mr. Martinez, for his grandmother, for all the patients he couldn't save, for his broken heart that he'd pretended was fine, for everything. Maya didn't say anything else. She just held his hand and let him grieve. When he finally stopped, embarrassed and exhausted, she offered him tissues from her pocket. Sorry, he muttered. Don't be. You're human. You're allowed to feel things. Mr. Martinez said the same thing to me this morning. He sounds like he was a wise man. He was. David wiped his eyes. His great-grandchildren are going to grow up with stories about him, and he'll never meet them in person. But they'll know he loved them. They'll know he fought to stay with them as long as he could. That matters. They sat together in the meditation room for another 20 minutes. Maya told him about other patients she'd lost, about the ones she'd saved, about the weird balance of hope and heartbreak that came with their jobs. David found himself talking, too, sharing stories he'd never told anyone, memories of patients who'd touched his life in small ways. Thank you, he said finally, for being here, for understanding, always. She squeezed his hand. That's what friends do. Friends, right, that's what they were. But sitting there, holding her hand, feeling more vulnerable and more seen than he had in years, David realized something terrifying. He was falling for her, not the careful, controlled way he'd fallen for his ex. This was different, bigger, scarier, the kind of falling that could really hurt if it didn't work out, and that thought terrified him more than anything else that had happened that day. Maya walked him back to the nurse's station. Jenny took one look at them and just nodded, understanding without needing explanations. The rest of the shift was quieter. David checked on his other patients mechanically, his mind still processing everything. When he left that evening, Maya was waiting by the exit. Want to get dinner? She asked. Real food, not hospital cafeteria garbage. I don't think I'm great company right now. I'm not asking you to be great company. I'm asking you to eat food with me so neither of us has to eat alone tonight. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same fear in her eyes that he felt. The fear of caring too much, of getting hurt again, of taking that risk. But he also saw kindness. And hope. Okay, he said. Let's get dinner. They went to a small diner 3 blocks from the hospital, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that was somehow both better and worse than the hospital version. They ordered burgers and fries and talked about nothing important. Movies they'd seen, books they'd read, places they wanted to travel to someday. It was normal, human, simple. And for the first time since finding Mr. Martinez in distress, David felt like he could breathe. When Maya dropped him back at his car, she turned to him. "You're going to be okay, you know. It might not feel like it right now, but you will be. How do you know? Because you care enough to hurt. That means you're doing it right." She drove away, and David sat in his car for a long time thinking about hearts, the ones that stopped beating and the ones that kept going, even when they were scared. The hospital gala was the last thing David wanted to attend. "Come on," Jenny pleaded, cornering him at the nurse's station. "It's for charity. Plus, there's going to be free food. When was the last time you ate something that wasn't from a vending machine? I eat real food. Cereal doesn't count as real food. It's fortified with vitamins." Jenny rolled her eyes. "David, please, everyone's going." "It'll be fun. Remember fun? That thing normal people have? I'm working the late shift anyway." "No, you're not. I already checked. You're off at 6 and the gala starts at 7. You have no excuse." She gave him that look, the one that had intimidated countless doctors and made patients take their medicine without complaint. "Maya's going." David's head snapped up. So nothing. I'm just saying. She's going. You're going. There will be music and decent food and a chance to pretend we're not all chronically exhausted healthcare workers for one night. I don't have anything to wear. You own a suit. I've seen you wear it to staff meetings. That suit is 10 years old. Then you'll match the decorations. They're going for vintage. Jenny patted his shoulder. 7 o'clock. Grand ballroom. Be there. She walked away before he could argue further. David spent the next 3 days trying to come up with reasons not to go. He could claim he was sick. He could say his car broke down. He could just not show up and deal with Jenny's disappointment on Monday. But Saturday evening found him standing in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the 15th time. The suit did look old, but it fit okay. He'd even gotten a haircut that afternoon, telling himself it was overdue anyway and had nothing to do with the gala. He arrived at 7:30, late enough that the room would already be crowded and he could blend into the background. The hospital's grand ballroom, usually used for conferences and training sessions, had been transformed. String lights hung from the ceiling. Round tables with white tablecloths dotted the room, and a small band played soft jazz in the corner. David immediately regretted coming. This wasn't his scene. Too many people, too much noise, too much forced cheerfulness. He could just grab a plate of food, show his face for half an hour, and leave. That would be enough to satisfy Jenny. He was scanning the room for the easiest escape route when he saw her. Maya stood near the far wall, talking to a group of therapists, wearing a deep blue dress that caught the light when she moved. Her hair was down for the first time since he'd met her, falling in soft waves past her shoulders. She laughed at something someone said, and David felt that familiar flutter in his chest. This was a mistake. He should leave. But then their eyes met across the room and Maya's whole face lit up. She excused herself from her group and started walking toward him, and David suddenly couldn't remember why leaving had seemed like a good idea. "You came." She reached him, still smiling. "Jenny said she'd convinced you, but I wasn't sure I believed her. She's very persuasive. She's terrifying." "There's a difference." Maya looked him up and down. "You clean up nice. So do you." I mean, David felt his ears get hot. "You look nice." "The dress is nice, thanks. I borrowed it from my sister. She has actual style, unlike me." Maya glanced around the ballroom. "This is a bit much, isn't it? I feel like I'm at someone's very expensive wedding. Want to get out of here?" The words came out before he could stop them. Maya raised an eyebrow. "We just got here. I know, but..." He trailed off, not sure how to explain that the room suddenly felt too small and too crowded, and he wanted to be somewhere quiet where he could actually hear her laugh without 100 other conversations drowning it out. "The rooftop garden." Maya said suddenly. "What?" "The hospital has a rooftop garden. For patients and families. I found it last week when I got lost looking for the cafeteria." Again. She grabbed his hand. "Come on." They snuck out like teenagers ditching class, Maya leading the way through back corridors and service elevators. She'd kicked off her heels somewhere along the way, carrying them in one hand while her other hand stayed wrapped around David's. The rooftop garden was small but beautiful. Someone had strung up more lights here too, casting everything in a warm golden glow. Plants grew in raised beds, and a few benches offered places to sit. You could see the city skyline from up here, all those lights and buildings stretching out forever. Better? Maya asked, finally letting go of his hand. Much better. They sat on one of the benches, close but not touching. The music from the gala drifted up faintly, mixed with the sounds of the city below. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said after a moment. "Sure. Why did you really come tonight?" David thought about lying, about giving some excuse about Jenny's persistence or free food. But he was tired of hiding, tired of being careful. "Because you were going to be here," he admitted. Maya turned to look at him, and he couldn't read her expression in the dim light. "David, I know we're friends. I know we both said we weren't looking for anything. I know all the reasons this is probably a bad idea." He forced himself to keep talking. "But these past few weeks, seeing you every day, talking to you, being around you, it's been the best part of my days. All of my days. And I don't know what to do with that." "You think I don't feel it too?" His heart stopped. "What? You think I wait around the cardiac ward just because I like the view?" Maya laughed, but it was shaky. "You think I memorized your schedule by accident? That I just happen to need coffee every morning at exactly the time you take your break? I thought—" "I'm scared too, David." She looked down at her hands. "I'm terrified, actually. The last time I followed my heart instead of my head, it ended badly. My family still hasn't forgiven me. And you've been hurt before. Really hurt. What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if we ruin the friendship we have? What if it does work?" Maya looked up, and in the golden light from the string lights overhead, David could see tears in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You won't." He shifted closer. "Maya, I've spent 2 years being careful, being safe, not letting anyone close enough to hurt me. And then you showed up with your terrible sense of direction and your awful taste in hospital coffee, and your ability to make even the hardest days better, and I—" He took a breath. "I don't want to be careful anymore. Not with you." "That's a really good speech," Maya said, and she was crying and smiling at the same time. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She moved closer, closing the gap between them. "For a guy who usually says about 5 words per conversation, you picked a good time to get chatty." David laughed, and then Maya was looking up at him with those warm brown eyes, and he was cupping her face with one hand, and this was it. This was the moment. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but she didn't. She leaned in too, her eyes starting to close. His pager went off. The harsh beeping shattered the moment like glass. David froze, then swore under his breath, pulling the pager from his pocket. "Code blue. Cardiac ward. All available staff report immediately." "I have to," he started. "I know. Go." Maya stepped back, wiping her eyes. "Go save lives. That's who you are. Maya, seriously, go. They need you."